It's finally here, gang. The Secret Society for Slow Romance is done. Okay, it's done with an asterisk because there are no end credits yet. There is a title card in the beginning that reads something I haven't written down here. It was very intriguing. 13 seconds of old NYC apartment radiator noise.
That will stay.
That's going to stay.
That's going to stay.
Okay. But,
Shit.
so are you going to play that while that
there.
title card is? Okay. Because
it's how it is now. How it is now is how the movie will go out.
Okay, I thought it was like a temp thing because when I was watching the film, I was like, I'm hearing it, but I'm also reading that it's there. It's explaining it to me. I was a little bit confused, but hey,
it's for people who don't know why there's 13 seconds of sound, of hissing noises at the start of the movie.
Fair enough. I think 2001: A Space Odyssey set that precedent with the, what was it, like the 10-minute overture before the movie started. So you're in good hands. I liked it. Nice. Leave it in. And yeah, there you go.
It's to get, go ahead.
There will be end credits though.
Yeah, the only other difference will be some of the sound will be fine-tuned, the sound transitions, the music transitions, some of the background sounds. I mean, I don't think anyone else will be able to tell. Maybe some really, really tuned in sound editors. But for my satisfaction, I'm going to do it. Plus end credits. That's the only differences between, those will be the only differences between what you saw and what plays to festival audiences and theatrical audiences.
So this is the sort of the preliminary, like the festival cut. You've started submitting this to places, right?
Already been submitted to Sundance, South by Southwest, Facets, about 6 places.
Nice. All right, so let's talk.
And I heard a little bit of inside info that one of the places is most likely going to, 2 of the places are most likely going to program it, but I'll let you know when it's confirmed.
All right. Well, yeah, the news will
update.
The news will keep on trucking. I mean, since we started the slowdown and now moving into IndieSeen, like this has now been the subject or a subject of 2 series that we've done on the show. So yeah, the updates will keep on coming. But yeah, I want to talk about, you finished the movie.
Yeah.
I've seen it. A few other people have seen it. Your phone just disappeared. Was it?
Can you hear my my noise?
Yeah, it's like a horn, like a party horn.
That's right.
Whoa! Now breaking out the battle armor. Is that real?
Movie's done. Movie's done.
Yeah, it's plastic. I found it in the back of our building. Okay,
that's it. That's it for extra celebration. Now down to serious work.
Well, wait a second. I gotta know. You found that blade in the back of your building.
It's a prop. Apparently, some people on my social media when I posted it said it's from a video game or something. I don't know, but it's nice. It's well made.
Yeah, good tool to have around.
It is,
well,
yeah.
It also it feels like it ties thematically into something like a subtext of Secret Society for Slow Romance, because there is also people in the film who are into time travel. We find out. So this could be some kind of an artifact from the past or the dystopian future in which we've gone back to, that militant blade and blood barbarism. So
Dune.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
Should we let you give you some time to talk about your reaction before the interview?
Well, I mean, this interview it's a conversation, an interview is more formal. Like we all kind of know each other. We've been talking for a long time. So let's just talk about the whole thing. I liked the movie.
Awesome.
It's a very strange place to be. And I think part of it is because of expectation. I need to watch it again. And I think I need to watch it again with end credits for some reason, but no.
No, you can, it's going to be me and Alia and credits.
Yes. No, I think because we've been talking about this so long, and I know one of your inspirations was My Dinner with Andre. I was kind of expecting something along those lines. And there's the whole pandemic aspect, and then there's the solving world poverty through, a plan that I'm not going to get into.
Good idea.
Right.
Keep it a secret.
Yes, I'll for the secret society, no doubt.
That's right.
Yes, very much so. I dug it, but I feel like there was just a bit. I think there was three components to this movie. There's the dates, there's the pandemic, and there is the secret society. Well, not some, yeah, the solving world poverty thing. I feel like the movie could have been about one of those things and stuck with that for like an hour and a half, because I dug the conversations, but because there are these kind of other elements into it, the deal with My Dinner with Andre is it's two people having one long dinner conversation that we're kind of sitting in on and privy to, whereas the conversations throughout this film, which take place at, I guess, different periods of time, I felt like I was watching the same conversation with two different people wearing alternating, different outfits, talking about different things. But I feel like it could have been cut up into like a series of webisodes and been just as effective. So now that I know what I'm in for, I think I'd be able to enjoy it a lot more. But part of that, I'm trying to wrestle with it. Was it my genuine reaction to the film? Was it my expectations going into it? So yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I'm not going to review the film right now. I'm going to wait until it's more out and available for more people to see, and when I can watch with those end credits, because then it will be complete, Sujewa.
That's right.
But yeah, I need to. This is the second time in a week that we've talked about a film I need to rewatch before I can really get my head around. Even though I reviewed Mirvish's 18½, but that was a slightly different case where I didn't need to watch it again to get it. I needed to watch it again just for like the Easter eggs and stuff.
Well, the Slow Romance is a very unusual movie. Some people will get it. A couple of people have loved it. Some people have liked it. Some people are thinking about it. Just like Andre, not to say it's very much like Andre. Just like the reaction to the Andre movie, a lot of people didn't get it at first. It slowly grew on people, and the people who liked it discovered it. I think it'll be the same thing with this one. But yeah, give it some time and watch it with no expectations, while knowing what's in it. I think you may be able to get into it a little bit better.
Maybe. I mean, one of the other I guess elements to it is I did, much like Werewolf Ninja Philosopher, New York is very much a character in this movie. The shots of the outside. I got to ask a question. This might not be something that was even intentional, but Alia, I want to ask this question of you, as the actress in the film. Sujewa is the co-star. It's just literally the two of you, along with an elderly couple doing something in a park that I won't get into, because that's something that's also sort of spoilery, although we sort of talked about it already. So for those who are watching this in the future, you'll know what we're talking about. But Alia, your character walks around. There's a lot of shots of you walking around the city. A lot of times masked, sometimes not. But the way that you're kind of stalking the city, sometimes it's kind of carefree, and sometimes you feel very much like you're on a mission. Did you feel that your character was looking for something? Or were you just kind of taking things in and you're carrying yourself in a very determined manner? What's your inner story for your character?
Well, the thing is that most of those scenes where I'm walking around in the city were filmed before I had read the script. So I didn't necessarily know all of what was going on in the character's head.
But I did give her directions on how to walk, etc.
That's true. And I in general have a very determined way of walking. I was made fun of for it in high school, in fact. So I think that just naturally came through, and it works for the character because she is very just determined, focused on doing one thing, which I'm not like that. I'm focused on 3 different things, and that's sometimes annoying to me personally, but really
that walk is her personality, the character's personality, related.
Yeah, but also the way I interpreted her walking around the city is for me personally, as a creative individual, when my brain speeds up and I start thinking about something and just thinking about an idea and dwelling on it, my body speeds up too. So I want to go for a walk when I have an idea, just so I can flesh it out, and just that helps me in my own creative process. So I figured that that was sort of one of the elements of Allison just walking around the city, checking out the sights, sometimes looking out into the distance, or just walking along, looking very determined.
Or in between stops, in between projects.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually is a good way of looking at it, because she has.
That's what I was thinking. She's going from, she has a busy day. She's going from here to there and checking out the sights.
Yeah. Plus, this is somebody who does have a job as well. So it's like I'm going to this shop. I think I'm restoring film and
Bay Ridge Film Archives.
Yeah. So there is an element that I'm traveling from work to Renee's house or apartment and that sort of thing, and just thinking about the creative process on the way. And she also mentions at one point that, in the beginning, that she's been kind of depressed and lonely because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I try to sort of think of it in that way too, of just sort of trying to get herself out of a funk, because when I go for a walk for that reason as well. So there, that's sort of how I thought of it, and it's just a wonderful excuse for all those amazing shots of the city. So,
that's right.
There's purpose behind it, but also new eye candy for New York aficionados.
That's right.
Well, it's interesting because, Sujewa, you mentioned that you, in directing her, had an idea of how you wanted her to move and sort of engage with the city. And Alia, it seems like you followed that direction, but then it sort of made sense to you after it was all done, after you had experienced the character of Allison, that just happened to sync up. Like the direction you were given, you were able to embody that with what felt like motivation, even though you didn't exactly know what the character's motivation was at the time. It's one thing to say, I want you to walk this way down the street. And for you to be like, okay, he's telling you to walk this way down the street. And then like a month later, after you've gone through this journey with the character, it all kind of makes sense. There wasn't necessarily, if I'm understanding, a desire for you to say, remember a month ago when we shot that walking down the street thing? I feel like I get it a bit more. Let's go redo that. But it sounds like you were kind of in sync without even knowing why.
Yeah.
She's a good actor. She's a good actor. So she picks things up.
Thank you. But also, yeah, just because I knew basically the outline for the character herself, and that she was like Sujewa actually sent me some links to underground filmmakers that I should read about. I don't actually remember their names, unfortunately.
Good. Don't mention their names.
Okay.
We don't want to get into legal problems.
Yeah, but and just reading about them, I'm like, whoa, these are they do some really wild stuff. So this is somebody who has ideas going through her mind all the time, which is something, I relate to. I have way too many ideas as well, and there's too much to there's a lot to put down and organize. But so
yeah, she had Alia, the real person there, has a very unique and powerful walk in real life also.
So I was a little bit less forceful for the movie, actually.
Oh, good.
That's you toned down the walk. Okay, yeah. Good.
Yeah, so I actually looked a little bit more like a typical human being walking down the street, rather than somebody headed into war.
There we go. Good.
I used to get that actually. And I think it sounds like we're kind of on the same wavelength of having too much going on in the head that the body reacts. I was told I used to walk like a missile, head down, moving very fast in one direction.
Yeah. Oh, when I was a child, actually, I would pace. I would pace from one side of the room to the other side of the room, and I would call it thinking about things. That's an OCD thing too, but that it was as a result of having too many ideas and literally bouncing off the walls because of it. So.
Wow. So having seen the final film, I know we've talked, at various points in the last, several months slash, oh my God, a couple of years, right? At this point. But now that because I know that you sat down with Sujewa and watched the finished film, since it had been so long, did you come right back to everything? Were there any surprises? Did you think, oh, I wish you would have left that in? Or was it pretty much like the key stuff that you filmed together made it into the final cut? And what was your reaction to seeing it?
I can't actually remember anything that we filmed that didn't make it into the movie in some way or another. Every scene we filmed,
everything was put in, all the scenes.
Yeah, we filmed every scene about 5 times, and I kind of like, every time I went in, I would have a new sort of couple of scenes to memorize. So everything, like watching the movie, yes, everything did come back to me, because most of it, the thing is, like, once it's done, it usually goes out of my head, but then when I'm reminded of it, I remember it pretty spot on. So it was highly amusing to watch, just from that standpoint.
You laughed a few times.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it was funny. It was just the way that there was a lot of non sequitur, which I enjoy. I like random humor like that. That's just sort of like completely out of nowhere. And you have to you do a double take and you're like, what did that person just say? What? That doesn't make any sense, does it? Huh? Okay, I have to think about it for a minute. So there was a lot of that, which I enjoy, that very absurdist type of humor. And
sadly, we had to leave out about half an hour or more of city shots. It was very sad.
Mm.
There were a lot of good ones though, still. So.
Well, that's for the Blu-ray extra. There you go.
Right. Hour and a half more of city shots.
I want to ask you, Sujewa, because I think this is just about on par, possibly. I haven't watched Werewolf in a while, but the level of jokes and references to things that may or may not be real. I was trying to unpack that. I don't want you to ruin everything for me, but there are certain things that, like there is a whole exchange about a film called 13 Lakes. Is that a real thing?
That's a real thing.
Okay.
And a real filmmaker, James Benning.
Okay.
Shots of 13 Lakes. He did one about skies also called Skies. I forget the title, but it's
spoiler.
13 Skies or something. Yeah, he's an unusual filmmaker. He has a career where he makes movies like that, and some critics love them, and he gets funded and he gets seen in festivals. Very interesting.
How long is this film, out of curiosity?
What was that?
How long is 13
It's
Lakes?
a feature. It's a feature.
Well, so like an hour and a half. Wow. Okay. Because it's one of those details, and I know this film, Slow Romance, there are very obviously fictitious elements to it, but there's just enough. It's sort of like going back to My Dinner with Andre. There's enough in here that just walks that line of like, I wouldn't be surprised if what you're talking about is true. And the 13 Lakes thing did come off as authentic. What I loved is that you brought it up, and it sounds so absurd, but you also found a way to work it into a joke with kind of a killer punchline. I think, Alia, you delivered that. I won't spoil what it is, but talking about sort of Hollywood culture and what they like to do with original films. Right. So I got to ask, how much of this kind of anecdotal stuff, aside from like the business venture or the whole idea of like taking pics of certain things, how much?
Oh, right.
Yes. How much of that was?
Those kind of movies do exist.
Well,
Andy Warhol did a bunch of stuff like that.
I remember, Empire is something I've never watched, but I'm familiar that it exists. But I want to ask, like, the anecdotal stuff from Renee's life, your character, Sujewa, how much of that is stuff that you drew from real life versus things that you just made up for this character? For example,
a lot of the Renee stuff is from real life. There's a whole world of indie filmmaking, underground filmmaking, and Hollywood filmmaking related problems or details that are never discussed in regular movies because it's, maybe not of interest to a regular audience. And like I was saying with that movie, Sofia Coppola movie On the Rocks. I watched that movie, and that's a slower indie Hollywood movie, right? But I felt it was way too fast, that they're just going through the plot. I mean, there's lots of moments where they could have spent 2 hours talking about a certain thing. So in this movie, which is largely non-commercial and more for specific audience, I wanted to talk about some of the things that are never talked about that are part of the indie film world. If you have any specifics, I can clarify as to how real or how fictitious that is.
Well, I was partially just thinking about you / your character at, say, like the ex-girlfriend in the treehouse.
There are some people that are similar in my life in the past, like that. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, then I moved to Chicago and New York. So there's a lot of eccentric, interesting people in all three towns. Okay.
Because that's something that I was trying to piece together about Renee, because that is one of the, it's not exactly the tagline for the movie, but it's sort of an idea that you've got Allison, who is a very prolific filmmaker. She's made, was it 29 features and 150 shorts. And yeah. she's 29 years old. That's right. she has a day job.
That's right.
And she's going on dates. And then you've got Renee, who was voted the happiest man in North America, very specifically, and I did like that distinction. Yes. So I just wonder, we get these little bits from your life about some like previous relationships, and you said you kind of made some mistakes and trying to give some advice to Allison, but I was wondering about that transition from that kind of a life to being voted the happiest man in North America. There seems like that could have been a 2-hour story in and of itself.
We'll make it if you're interested. We'll make that movie for Ian and similar people. The Renee story.
I was hoping that was going to be this story.
See, I had Go ahead, Alia. What were you saying?
A lot of people would be interested in a bunch of tips of how to become the happiest person in North America or even their hometown.
That's right. I had 3 more scenes that were more about Renee matters, spirituality, happiness, stuff like that. But we were just running out of time because I think we shot for like 7 or 8 weekends, and right. And I decided. We'll use those scenes for a future movie, and I didn't want the film to be like 2 hours, 3 hours. So yeah, some stuff had to be left out, but there's more material about Renee. Maybe I'll do a separate movie about him. Also, maybe a separate one about Allison. Maybe her making a movie like something like Day for Night, but with Allison.
There you go. I do have to ask.
Not her making her 8-hour movie.
I'm not signing on for that one.
That's right. Well, if the action is off camera, that's a really easy gig.
That's true. It could be anybody, really.
That's right.
I do have to ask.
We don't see the movie. We just see you making it slightly off camera.
Okay, that I'm fine with.
Not to bring up the movie or the TV show Entourage, but there is a whole storyline for like a season where the actor in that it's about a guy who goes out to Hollywood with his friends, and he ends up getting the starring role in Aquaman. This is like 20 years ago.
Right. And I remember watching it.
Yeah. And there was like that whole running gag about like how he's making the movie, he's doing all of this press and stuff. And people are like, oh, it's Aquaman. Are we going to see the movie? And they do finally say, okay, we're going to show a scene of the movie. It's literally just the guy running down a pier, ripping off his shirt and jumping into the water. And then it, cuts back to the regular show. So yeah, I thought that was hilarious. And I would be on board for watching a similar film about the making of a movie where we don't actually see anything involved, with the final product.
Awesome. So was it funny? Did you find some stuff to be funny?
I did. There is, and that's what I think I used the term web series or something like in the beginning. There is a lot of these great little scenes, and you get in and you get out with a laugh, and then there's some nice New York stuff, and it keeps coming back. It feels kind of episodic in places, and a lot of those little episodes have some great laughs in them. Awesome. So yeah, it was very funny. The script is super like smart and engaging. And I think like I'm not as much of a film nerd as I'm sure you are, Sujewa, and a lot of other folks who are into like the independent film scene, because as people know who've been watching us babble for 2 years, you've been really a mentor to me in terms of slow cinema and indie film, and we haven't gotten to a whole lot of underground stuff. Maybe that's something we can explore later, right? But we'll have to have a third series for that, because what will we call that? I don't know, but yeah, but
favorites.
Yes, it sounds but it felt like people who are knowledgeable about a particular art form engaging in conversations about that particular art form, and that's it was really fun to watch. Awesome. Again, I just kind of wish that that was all of it. I
think if you, now that you've seen it, you know what the thing is. Maybe when you watch it next time, you'll be able to connect the three threads better. We'll see.
It's not that I don't think. Yeah, I'm gonna tread lightly here, because
one thing I want to say, the ending, the save the world aspect, and their personalities and the filmmaking, they're all really connected, in the sense that I felt that solution only these types of people could come up with it after getting to know each other and using their interests. So I felt like all that stuff really built up to that ending. So that's why I'm saying that now that you know the form, some of the stuff in it, it may play differently for you next time. We'll see.
Well, I mean, that's sorry, go ahead.
My apologies. There's a lot of stuff that we talk about throughout, just in our conversations, that it actually kind of comes full circle, and it comes back to toward the end in the final plan. Mm-hmm. That it sort of comes together as like, oh, okay, they were talking about that earlier, and now they're finding a way to execute it. So that's, I guess, how I saw how it came to that point.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree. I get it. I caught the the kind of callbacks and the Ouroboros of the story. It's just that the ultimate plan, and it's hard because I don't want to get into it, because people need to experience for themselves. I watched it and I was like, well, this plan doesn't make any sense. And then it supposedly does work according to the logic of the movie. And so I'm just left with like, it does take a certain kind of, characters to come up with this idea. But I think, I know the movie is, kind of a fantasy, kind of a comedy, and it works on that level, but it's also grounded enough in that I'm supposed to be watching kind of real people. And a lot of the script was based on, real world kind of anecdotes. That I'm just left with like, no, that doesn't work at all. And that was sort of my problem.
You're right. Well, when the movie's been out, when the movie's been out a while, we'll do an episode where we talk about, can that plan work? How might it work? Because I've seen on smaller scales, not globally, on smaller scales, I've seen that kind of thing work.
Yeah, and but that's sort of the issue, is you can do, again, tiptoeing as gently around this as I can. You can do that on a small scale, but globally, it opens up to worlds of problems.
That's why they're doing it secretly.
And that's sort of one of the problems. But anyway, we can move past that.
Anyway, the movie is not a blueprint for ending poverty. It's an idea, an entertaining idea that they put forth. And I'll separately, in the real world, as I promote the movie over the next 3 years, I'm going to blog a lot about real people who are doing real projects to end poverty, so people can sort of watch the movie, laugh, go check out some of the real stuff.
Yeah.
To me, that was actually part of what made it absurdist, is the idea that they came up with this completely like just out of this world plan that nobody could ever imagine actually working in reality. And for a problem that is just so big and ingrained in human nature and society that the fact that they're able to solve this thing, and it's like, oh, 10 years, yeah, that's all it'll take. It'll take 10 years to do this, and that's part of
that 10-year estimate is from the UN, by the way. They think prior to the pandemic, they were thinking that in 10 years, extreme poverty can be ended. But I think the characters in our movie are aiming above that.
Yeah, but it also, like, my character in Werewolf Ninja Philosopher had the same, there was the same absurdist quality in the sense of that character's goals, because at one point she's like, I'm not going to stick around. I'm going to go to Chicago and I'm going to end homelessness there. We're working on a project for that, and that's going to happen. And it's just so casually off the cuff. And it's like, okay, well, that's impossible, but you go ahead. And that's part of
also, go ahead. One last thing. I was thinking of space research. Why we spend so much money on NASA is that in the past, they've done these ridiculously amazing things like going to Mars, going to the moon. And that kind of extreme ambition has yielded lots of smaller discoveries that have been helpful. So I like people who have crazy ambitions, because even if they don't achieve that, they might discover India, right? They might discover microwaves, you know, who knows?
That's true.
Yeah, but I think there's the key kind of distinction, you know, Alia, with what you had mentioned with your character from Werewolf Ninja Philosopher. It's one thing, because that movie is completely, you know, wacky and off the rails, right? So when your character, just as sort of an aside, says, yeah, I'm just going to go back to Chicago and end homelessness, it's funny because it's, you know, kind of a weird, almost like a non sequitur, you know, moment. At the end of this film, there's a lot of discussion and planning, and as you mentioned, it kind of wraps back around to some of the larger themes from the movie. So as kind of silly as the plan is, there is some sort of heart. So I believe, watching this, that the filmmaker believes that there's something to this idea. Now, that's one thing, but then to say that it works, you can't, that needs to be a movie or a miniseries, because I'm just sitting here waiting. That plan is utterly, I'm just going to say it, that plan is utterly stupid.
We'll see. If we see the movie about the plan working, or in 10 years, when I actually carry out the plan secretly and it works, we'll have a follow-up episode.
Sure. But that's sort of my point, is like that little coda about like, and it all worked out in 10 years. That's where you kind of lose me. It goes from being funny to be like, all right, that is funny, but I don't think in the way that you meant for me to think that it's funny.
Yeah, no, it's not going to work for everyone. But one reviewer told me today that the ending was like a spiritual experience for him, and because of that, he liked the movie a lot.
So not a fan of economics and world politics, huh?
Well, I mean, when you look close into economics and world politics, it is super absurd and weird. It's we're super used to it, and we don't question it much because it works for us. You know, the three of us talking right now, right? But when you look closer at it, I mean, this could be a separate movie. That you know, money is not real. It's an estimate of productivity and spending. I don't really know what stops any country from, you know, declaring themselves to be rich and imitating American economy, and that could work. I mean, there's a lot of weird things about economics when you look really close into it.
Yeah, I mean, in some sense, you're right, but in the other sense, it's because we've been living with these institutions, these the machinery of the global economy, everything kind of getting smaller and smaller as the, you know, communication and travel and everything and information is being condensed. It makes it a lot harder for someone to just say, well, I'm declaring myself the the richest country in the world, and we can do all this amazing stuff for everybody, because there are other interests who have their fingers entangled in that. They're like, well, not so fast, because, you know, I mean, look at what happened with Gaddafi, for crying out loud. We're going to open up these water reserves, and like the next thing you know, he's dead.
Right. Now, I'm not saying, well, I'm saying such a declaration would require I mean, the countries that do it, countries that maintain a good economy, work with the US, work with our banks, and in effect, work with our military. So you would basically need the approval of the US to do something like that at this point for a country, for most of the countries. But beyond that, beyond the political practicality, money right now is numbers on a computer. It's not tied to actual gold or whatever else. It's a probability or possibility plus numbers on a computer. So banks and governments invent money every day by just typing in numbers.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you know, I don't disagree with that, but the problem is that it is, you know, whether why don't you call it a fiction or something that's not as tied to, you know, real things as it, you know, used to or probably should, it is something that we all agree with. And to stop that machinery, you're going to need like a nuclear Armageddon or some kind of a revolution that I think in the effect of it could be far more destructive than just, you know, carrying on this lumbering machine. But I mean, but that's the thing. This is the subject of a several-hour, you know, movie, a documentary or a fictitious take, which is why at the end of the movie, when it says "and it all worked out," I'm like, no. But I would like to see how that worked out because it'd be very fascinating to me. Yeah.
Well, after you watch it the next time, we should talk about some of my ideas as to how it could have worked out.
Yeah, so this will be part one, and part two will be much like the development of the film. It'll come out probably a year or more from now.
In 27 months. But
it's a date.
yeah. But what I was going to say is, you know, the global economy is an agreed upon performance, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if in that performance we still have poverty, right? To eliminate poverty, the performance would have to be done in a different way, and on certain scales that happens. Countries renegotiate with American banks and the American government and get rid of debt and or restructure debt, and that allows them to, like Greece did that with the European Union, that allows them to keep functioning.
Yeah, but at the, you know, the other side of that is who is ultimately in control of these things and how do they exert that control? I mean, we just saw, you know,
it's a joint thing,
right? But you had, you know, say the whole UK thing with Brexit a few years ago. You know, there was a decision like, we don't want to live by these rules, so we're going to separate, and that caused a lot of upheaval. And you know, we're still trying to untangle that, and that's one country moving out of the European Union. If you all of a sudden decide, you know, have all these different countries saying, yeah, we're not going to do this anymore.
Oh no, I'm not saying that's possible. But I'm saying big changes are possible with the correct agreements.
Yeah, and that is true. It's a matter of getting people to come to the table and say, you know, I'm not saying that the fabulously wealthy, the 0.001% would lose anything by ending world poverty. I'm just saying that there may be conversations from those moneyed interests to say, I don't want to give an inch on what I have to make things better for people at the other end of the spectrum. Well,
what they have is fiction. So
but again, it's a fiction that everybody agrees on.
Right, but we can appease those interests. I'm saying this is going to happen anyway, because we need to make sure, you know, extreme poverty doesn't create diseases. Extreme poverty doesn't create, you know, the current immigration crisis that's continuing in various parts of the world. We need stability. We need better governance. We need less corruption. The wealthier countries are going to be motivated to push for this stuff, and already are. I mean, the US has been doing it since like the 1940s in order to solve some problems that will eventually be a problem for us. We spend a lot of money on Mexico, for example, and a lot of talent to keep Mexico stable so that it becomes less of a problem for us. When I say talent, I mean a lot of American resources, special forces, diplomats, engineers, blah, blah, blah. It's not really talked about because it's bad for Mexican politicians and American politicians, but there's a lot of collaboration between Mexico and the US to keep things, you know, safe and improve things.
Well, and that's, you know, one of the issues I kind of had with this resolution is ending poverty worldwide is not something that's going to go unnoticed. So the things required to make that happen, those interests that are keeping things, you know, whether or not intentionally or, you know, passively going, they're, you know, they're not necessarily going to like that. You know, they have a system.
I'll make another movie. I'll make another movie about that.
I'm just saying, if you're going to introduce these ideas, explore them, or, you know, kind of take the piss out of the ideas. Like, yeah, it's kind of, you know, funny.
No. I'm suggesting it as a real possibility.
All right.
So that I'll make another movie about it.
Okay. Yeah. And I will watch that, as Palpatine said. That's the second time I've used that reference, I think, in a week, with great interest. So, yeah.
See, this didn't even, none of this even came up as a subject in my thoughts. Like, it never occurred to me in a million years that this was supposed to be realistic. It's sort of like when I watch a slasher movie and somebody gets stabbed in the throat and they're still screaming. I'm like, you can't scream after that. That's not going to happen, but that's just the genre. So I accept it because I'm watching, it's fiction. It's supposed to, you have to suspend disbelief. So that's the entire way that I saw everything. Like, I never thought, I don't know a thing. I would have to read like several books about economics to have any idea what any of that means. But
no. The point of the movie is not to, point of this movie is not to lay out a plan how that would work. That would be a documentary. That would be a long documentary, but the point
it'll be the empire of documentaries.
That's right. The point of this movie is to show two people, somewhat unlikely people, but possibly, you know, obviously possible that they came up with this idea. Deal with the pandemic, go on some dates, and come up with an amazing idea. That's what this movie does. To explain the amazing idea, we would have to do a bunch of other movies. Which, you know, hey, if there's a demand, I'll do it.
I want to ask, because we had sort of talked about this, but it's been a long time, because you had this idea before anybody knew what the word COVID was. I mean, when I say anybody, there are people out there who knew what, you know, COVID was, but right. And you mentioned that
related.
Yeah.
Did you get all the Amir Madla connections?
I did. Yes. And I also got the
Man movie.
Yes, Man, Three Worlds. There was one other one in there that I don't know if I've seen.
A character who helps come up, you know, carry out the final, the plan that they came up with is named after the character in Amir's movie Man.
Okay.
So I was thinking it's the same guy.
I missed right past. I remember the scene where you were talking about Amir, and I believe that was also the scene, or there was one related to it where you're talking about film critics, and yeah, that was nice.
Some real film critics.
and me.
Yeah, we mentioned you. Was the joke about Michael
Phillips? Yeah. It was, and again, it made me wonder: is he actually a male model? Because he should be.
Whoa!
What? He's
a male model. Why don't you just say model?
Don't talk about it.
I won't.
No, don't talk about the joke.
What joke? No. But
all that Ian said is not in the movie.
Of course, no. What I'm full of it.
You know, he's just riffing on the movie.
I'm imagining things. I'm very tired.
No mention of Michael Phillips in the movie.
No, Michael who?
Right.
But
no, that's fiction. It's a joke. So whatever the thing that's in there is a joke, as far as I know.
Okay, because again, and this is one of the things I did love about the script is I was never sure what was bullshit and what was not. So it's very good.
That was the tone I wanted. Realistic, but with some absurdist humor in there.
Right, but okay, but getting back to my original question, you know, Allison, the character that you play, Alia, you mentioned that she was depressed because of a lot of, you know, kind of COVID related, you know, lockdown kind of things, feeling very isolated. Was that an element, Sujewa, that you had written for the original version of Allison? It's just that it was going to be, she was, you know, lonely and depressed for other reasons, or was this something that came along with the idea of incorporating the pandemic into your story?
That was a pandemic invention, because
Okay.
people were isolated. Their usual social networks were shut down. The country and the city were shut down. In a situation like that, and in real life, a lot of people did get depressed because they couldn't do their usual routine. A lot of people I knew moved out of the city. Haven't seen them since. So yeah, that was a COVID-inspired bit of rework in the script.
Okay. So what was the change? Like, what kind of character was Allison before you introduced that? Did she have, you know, kind of like emotional troubles or a different kind of instability that was sort of swapped out for this COVID depression?
That was a new thing that was added into the script.
Okay.
No, nothing like that was in the previous script.
Okay. Because it seems, I just wonder what was there, like, was she just kind of a happy-go-lucky but kind of manic because she's always on the move character, or?
Yeah, same character, but the part of the motivation for starting the dates, you know, in the COVID era was to, you know, reduce some of the loneliness and spending a lot of time by herself. So that was not in the original script. Otherwise, it was the same character.
Okay. And Alia, in terms of the way that you approached Allison, when Sujewa kind of introduced this element, did that change the way that you thought about your character? Was it a big shift from what you had imagined when you first kind of signed on?
Oh, well, by the time Alia was hired for the role, that was on, because she was not, if you recall, other people were supposed to play Allison.
I couldn't remember what the timeline was. If that, okay.
She was hired after the COVID emergency broke out, and the previous actress couldn't do it because of the various problems related to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So the version that she saw always had that. Okay.
So you were always living with this version of Allison, or she was living within you.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, to me, I guess I didn't really, it didn't necessarily, the idea of the character being a little depressed or lonely didn't strike me as anything unusual for a very like a hyper productive artist.
Yeah.
Like that. First of all, I mean, maybe this is just me because I'm such a cynic. I generally associate artists as being a little bit unhappy. That's just how I think. So like that's oh, you froze for a minute. Okay, so I guess that just to me was a natural element of her character, and but she's also painted as somebody who has been in relationships before and does spend time with other human beings, and in those elements very unlike me, and like, so that she does, I got the sense she does have a little bit more of a social butterfly type of personality, and I have friends who are like that, who are creative and extroverted at the same time, and a lot of their creativity and happiness and productivity came out of being able to and work with them and spend time with them. So that is definitely one way in which I interpreted Allison as being different from me, in that I feel she is somebody who feeds more off the energy and creativity of others, which, you know, as a filmmaker, you have to be, because it requires working with a team rather than sitting in a room by yourself, as you know, other forms of artwork may entail. So, you know, that's kind of how I read it, and it's also to me, you know, she's the one who is sort of initiating these dates, and they're meeting in the beginning because she needs to borrow some equipment, and so. It's more like her reaching out for some sort of interaction, and that's sort of the impetus of how these characters end up seeing each other and sitting at that table to begin with. So that's how I saw it, I guess.
No, that makes sense.
Good approach, yeah. Good way to look at it.
Well, I was going to say, it's also, not that there's much good about the pandemic, but it is nice to see that element of the kind of depressed, searching person coming into contact, and even intimate contact, with someone who is, very positive and giving with their time, and engaging, the way that the Renee character is. There is a real sweetness to the heart of this movie, and that's why, for all the kind of knocks I'm giving it, it's just because I could watch, just a 2 or 3 hour conversation of these two characters talking to each other in one date, like in the apartment, just never leaving, just sitting down and talking. But yeah, it left me wanting more, which I guess is a mark of a great film.
The next movie.
I think why Allison chooses Renee, and is because she sees that he's very kind of just laid back and seems to be at peace. And I think that part of, like, because she is asking him at one point, like, how does this help you achieve happiness? This relaxes you to do all these things. So she's kind of looking for pointers in being a happier person. So I got that from there. The reason why, I mean, she probably knows a lot of other filmmakers, a lot of other people in her circle, but that's why she gravitated toward Renee. Because, it did occur to me, like, why these, why these two, I mean, they have similar interests, but their personalities are quite different.
Mm-hmm.
So
Renee, I thought, was like, he's not even really into pursuing a relationship prior to, Allison bringing it up. He was just thinking about his, being chill, thinking about how to do something to help people. And then this thing with Allison came up, and he's like, oh, sure, that sounds like a fun thing. Let's do it.
Well, I got to say, Renee's got something else going on too, because
he's the happiest man in North America, man.
Well, but one of the biggest laughs I had in the movie, and I don't even know if it was intentional or what, I think it was, because you're a sneaky devil, Sujewa. And without giving the joke away, again, I'm tiptoeing like hell around this thing, but it includes pictures,
right,
that someone might have on the phone,
right,
and there's a few seconds of like scrolling,
right.
I'm like, what the hell is on your phone?
Well,
and that's all I'll say.
You got to look for the right photo to send when requested. But
they are just there.
Yes.
Available. That's the joke to me.
I did research. Unfortunately for modern young men, this is a reality that some have said on print and to the news media. Yeah, they do have a number of photos that when they start seeing someone new, the request comes for one and they send it. It's a weird world.
I'm happy to be old and not,
right.
No, just.
I'm happy to be completely out of the loop in terms of that scene.
Yes. I would suggest, Alia, if that ever like becomes part of an equation, that should be a deal breaker. Here,
well,
let me go through my gallery. No.
Well, listen, if one of us becomes single, we know what we may have to face.
There you go. And okay, and just to even things out, Sujewa, I hope that you never have to go through that either.
Right. I mean, whatever, man. If a lady is interested in that, that's a pretty good setup for the guy, I think.
Well, especially if she makes a movie about it, hypothetically.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that scene, we had a lot of fun. We were laughing after every take because it's so absurd.
Yes. All right. Well, we've talked I think we've talked about as much about the film as we can without getting into all the spoilerific details. But I'm serious, and hopefully it won't be 27 months because people are going to be able to see the movie and they'll be talking about the movie and writing about it and vlogging about it way before 2024, 25, whatever it is. I can't do math.
Whenever you're ready to talk about it again in a few months, we'll do it. I think just listening to what you were saying, I think you liked a lot of aspects of it, but you couldn't wrap your head around the saving the world idea. But let's see. Let's have you look at it again.
Okay. Yeah, and I would like to talk to both of you about do a part 2 of this at some point. And awesome. But yeah,
how's the acting? How was the acting? This is my first time acting in a feature in a long time.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, it was good. I mean, it was. I could tell that it was acting. It wasn't the completely like naturalistic, style. It's not like us just sitting here, talking and stuff. But yeah, it was for what it needed to accomplish, and that sort of absurdist, but romantic, but kind of out there idea. The film is a lot of things, and I think it really worked.
Awesome, great. Yeah, I thought Alia did a good job. I thought I was able to convey what needed to be conveyed. So.
But it was pretty much for you, man. It was kind of method, right? I mean, because I was watching him like, yeah, Renee, whatever. That's not your name. This is Sujewa. And I am going to inspect your phone next time I see you.
Sure. Some takes sometimes we had to do 10 takes because Alia is a pro. She had her character down and dialogue down really well. I had to keep stopping and remembering things, looking at the script, blah, 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 and improving the performance. But thankfully, I had a good partner in the movie. And because of that, we were able to make an amazing movie.
All right. Well,
and it's romantic.
Yes, very much so. It says right behind you. But yeah, so until we meet again, and I think, next year when this thing really starts hitting like festivals and screenings, possibly something locally that we can talk about, then we'll do a part 2 of this and really get into the secrets of the secret society for slow romance. But yeah. What's that?
No, that's the wrong one.
Uh-oh.
That's the wrong sound effect.
Okay. I'm glad when you held that up, it bled into your background because I'm afraid of what would show up on that screen. Anyhow, and I hope that what we're talking about doesn't actually make that sound effect because you might want to get that checked out. Anyway, Sujewa, Alia, thank you very much for hanging out and talking about this film. It's been long overdue, and I'm happy that it's done. I'm proud of both of you for a job well done. Congratulations.
Thanks for the show, and I'll email you about the next show, Ian. We'll figure out when we're doing it and what the subject is. Alia, I'll talk to you tomorrow about business stuff.
Sounds good.
Good work.
Thank you. You as well.
You're a great actress, and you're a great podcaster, Ian.
Well, thank you, and you are one hell of a filmmaker, sir. And awesome. And congrats, Alia, very much. Very, very well done. All right.
Remember,
take care, everybody.
It's romantic.
It is. It's definitely romantic. Have a great and wonderful romantic, maybe even a secret evening with the society.
Thank you. See you guys
later.
Good night.